I used to think transformation would come wrapped in thunder, a blinding revelation that would split my life into a clear before and after. But the truth of the shift came quietly, in moments that seemed ordinary. A breath held too long, a morning when the light looked different, a question that echoed deeper than the words themselves. I was tired. Tired of running in circles made of fear. Tired of waking up to the same thoughts, the same doubts, the same invisible weight pressing on my chest. Every success felt temporary, every failure eternal. I chased goals because I thought achievement would silence the noise inside, but each victory only made the silence louder. And then something inside me whispered, what if the noise is not the enemy? What if it's the invitation? That question cracked something open. For the first time, I looked at my own discomfort not as punishment but as guidance. I began to sense that everything around me was energy and motion, words, gestures, memories, even silence. The people I met, the situations I called coincidence, all seemed to respond to some unspoken signal I was sending out. I started to observe myself like a scientist of the soul, noticing how fear contracted my energy and how gratitude expanded it. The more I paid attention, the clearer it became. The world was not happening to me. It was happening through me. Every thought was a frequency, and every emotion a broadcast. I was both transmitter and receiver, shaping reality with every vibration I emitted. At first, this realization terrified me. If my energy created my experience, then I was responsible for everything, every heartbreak, every loss, every mischance. But soon I understood responsibility was not blame, it was power. I could choose new frequencies the way a musician chooses notes. I could tune myself toward possibilities that had always existed but were hidden beneath the static of self-doubt. The universe, I began to realize, was never withholding. It was mirroring. It could only reflect the vibration I held within. The shift truly began the night I stopped running from silence. I turned off every distraction, sat on the floor, and listened to the hum behind my thoughts. At first, all I could hear was the mind screaming for noise, plans, worries, regrets. But beneath that, a subtler sound emerged, a vibration like the faint strumming of a cosmic chord. It wasn't outside me. It was me. The more I breathed into it, the stronger it became until it filled the room, the building, the sky itself. In that vibration, there was no fear, no history, only presence. I felt the old layers of myself peeling away, labels, comparisons, judgments, melting into that resonant now. When I opened my eyes, nothing in the room had changed, yet everything looked new. The same walls, the same furniture, but alive, vibrating with quiet intelligence. I understood then that manifestation was not about forcing the world to obey my will. It was about aligning my frequency so the world could reveal what matched it. The shift was internal first. The outer world was simply catching up. Over the next weeks, synchronicities multiplied. Songs on the radio answered my thoughts. Strangers repeated phrases I had written in my journal. I would imagine an opportunity, and within days it appeared, not because I conjured from nothing, but because I finally tuned the vibration where it already existed. Life had always been speaking this language. I was finally learning to listen, yet the old self didn't vanish overnight. It fought to stay relevant, whispering that I was delusional, that magic wasn't real, that reality was solid and cruel. But each time fear spoke, I answered with awareness. I learned to observe thoughts without giving them authority. They were echoes from an outdated frequency, and I had the choice to tune higher. Some days I stumbled back into the old signal, anger, scarcity, self-pity. But now I knew the way out, gratitude. Gratitude wasn't a trick. It was the key that unlocked coherence. The moment I felt grateful, even for pain, the vibration lifted and clarity returned like sunlight after rain. I began to write affirmations not as wishes, but as declarations of alignment. I am not seeking abundance. I am the frequency of abundance. I am not chasing love. I am a vibration through which love flows. These were not mere words. They were codes that reprogrammed the field around me. Each sentence was a tuning fork striking a new resonance in the symphony of my life. One morning, during meditation, I saw a vision, the earth itself pulsing like a living heart, sending waves of light through humanity. Each soul, a cell in that great body, awakening at its own pace. The shift, I realized, wasn't personal. It was planetary. We were collectively moving from fear to coherence, from separation to unity. Some resisted, clinging to density, but even resistance was part of the dance. Contrast awakening desire, desire birthing evolution. After that vision, my interactions changed. When someone spoke harshly, I no longer reacted. I sensed their pain as misaligned energy. Instead of matching their frequency, I held my own. Miraculously, the tension dissolved. People softened without me saying a word. That was when I truly understood manifestation. Not manipulation, but resonance. You don't fight darkness. You hold light until darkness remembers its source. I began to test this in everyday life. When fear about money rose, I didn't force positivity. I acknowledged the fear, breathed through it, and replaced it with trust. Money is energy, I told myself, and energy flows where faith lives. Within days, unexpected income appeared. Refunds, new clients, opportunities one hadn't considered. It wasn't coincidence. It was correspondence. The outer matched the inner. The greatest transformation, though, came in how I saw myself. For years, I had identified with the story of struggle, childhood wounds, disappointments, labels others gave me. But the shift required me to release even the identity of the healer or the seeker. Those roles were still masks. Underneath them was something wordless, vast, and whole. The more I connected with that essence, the more effortless life became. Action arose from inspiration, not obligation. Choices felt guided, not forced. It was as if an invisible current carried me exactly where I needed to go. Still, the mind often asked, what if this piece disappears? What if you fall back? And the answer came, gentle and clear. Then I will rise again, because the shift is not a destination. It is a continual remembering. That realization freed me from the pressure of perfection. Growth was not linear. It was rhythmic, like breathing. Expansion and contraction, both sacred. I started teaching what I learned, not as doctrine, but as experience. People from different backgrounds resonated instantly. They spoke of similar awakenings, dreams turning vivid, coincidences intensifying, inner guidance growing stronger. It became obvious that the collective field was accelerating. The shift that changes everything was no longer a prophecy. It was happening now, through each awakened heart. One evening, while journaling, a sentence wrote itself through me. When you change your frequency, you don't escape your life. You illuminate it. Reading it back, I realized that was the essence of manifestation. The goal isn't to abandon the human story, but to infuse it with consciousness until it glows with meaning. The universe isn't separate from the mundane. It hides inside it, waiting to be recognized. And so I began to live differently. Each morning I asked, what frequency will I choose today? Sometimes the answer was joy, sometimes compassion, sometimes patience. Whatever vibration, I chose colored every event that followed. Even challenges became teachers, mirrors showing where alignment wavered. Instead of saying, why is this happening to me? I learned to ask, what energy is this asking me to embody? That single shift in questioning changed my reality more than any external action ever could. The old paradigm taught that effort creates results. The new frequency revealed that energy creates alignment, and alignment magnetizes results effortlessly. When I acted from fear, doors closed. When I acted from love, even the impossible unfolded naturally. It wasn't mystical thinking. It was energetic law. The universe responds to coherence the way iron filings respond to a magnet. It cannot resist. The more I surrendered to this new understanding, the more I realized how subtle mastery truly is. The shift isn't about forcing joy. It's about remembering that joy already exists beneath the noise of resistance. I began walking to the city as though the entire landscape were alive. Every face a reflection. Every gust of wind a whisper of intention. Even the small frustrations, the traffic lights and misunderstandings, became reminders that the universe was asking me to pause, to breathe, to listen again to the vibration beneath appearances. One afternoon, after a particularly chaotic day, I stood in the middle of a crowded street and decided to feel gratitude instead of stress. Within seconds, the chaos seemed to part around me. Horns softened, strangers smiled, and a deep calm expanded inside my chest. It was as though the outer world had been waiting for me to remember my inner equilibrium. That was the moment I understood what alignment truly meant. It wasn't a reward for perfect behavior. It was a natural state revealed when resistance falls away. As days turned into weeks, I found myself rewriting every rule I had ever believed about cause and effect. I had been taught that action leads to result, that hard work guarantees success. Yet I was witnessing miracles that arrived through inner shifts rather than physical struggle. When I tuned into the feeling of completion before any goal had materialized, circumstances rearranged themselves to meet that vibration. Jobs, relationships, even random encounters began to mirror my inner certainty. The world felt like a hologram, responding to the signal of my emotions. I began keeping a frequency journal, not to track events, but to note the energy behind them. Every entry confirmed the same principle. High vibration precedes high outcome. The more love I generated internally, the more harmonious reality became externally. Still, the journey was not free of doubt. There were nights when old patterns crept back, whispering that this was all imagination, that real life required worry and effort. During those nights, I would sit in darkness and remind myself that the stars, too, shine against the void. The mind will always argue for limitation because it cannot comprehend infinity. But the heart recognizes truth without evidence. So I learned to rest in that silent knowing. Whenever fear tried to reclaim the throne, I thanked it for protecting me and released it with compassion. This gentle act of acknowledgement became my greatest tool for transformation, turning even fear into fuel for expansion. Soon, I noticed something extraordinary. People around me started shifting too. Friends who had once complained about lack began to speak of possibilities. Family members who resisted change suddenly felt inspired. It was as if my inner broadcast had adjusted the entire field of relationships. I realized that energy is contagious, that we are constantly influencing one another beyond words. When we elevate our vibration, we silently give permission for others to do the same. The shift was no longer a solitary process. It was a collective awakening rippling through every conversation, every glance, every shared breath. There was a morning when I woke up before dawn, drawn to the balcony by an invisible pull. The sky was indigo, stars fading into early light. As I watched the horizon, a phrase arose from nowhere. "You are the dawn you've been waiting for." The sentence echoed through me like sacred thunder. I understood that the external sunrise was merely mirroring the inner one. For years I had waited for life to prove my worth, for circumstances to validate my growth. Now I saw that creation begins within. I didn't need to wait for signs. I was the sign. Every heartbeat was proof that the universe believed in me enough to keep me alive. That realization dissolved every remaining fragment of doubt. I began teaching workshops not out of ambition, but out of overflow. I wanted others to taste the freedom of inner alignment. People from different walks of life came, students, entrepreneurs, parents, and every session reaffirmed the same truth. The shift that changes everything is an inward decision to vibrate higher than the problem. When they practice gratitude, forgiveness, and presence, their stories changed within weeks. Jobs appeared, relationships healed, health improved. The miracle wasn't external. It was the frequency of consciousness expanding beyond limitation. Each testimony strengthened my faith that this principle is universal and unstoppable. But with every expansion comes a new layer of humility. The more power I experienced, the more reverence I felt for the intelligence orchestrating it all. I stopped claiming to be the creator and started recognizing myself as a channel through which creation flows. The ego loves to take credit for miracles, but the soul knows better. It simply aligns and allows. This understanding deepened my peace. I no longer chase manifestations. I welcome them. I no longer prayed from lack. I communed from fullness. Life became a continuous meditation, a seamless dance between inspiration and action. Then came the test. A project I had invested months of energy into collapsed overnight. Old fears rushed back. What if it was all an illusion? What if the shift only works when things are easy? For a moment, I felt the familiar heaviness returning. But this time, I didn't spiral. I closed my eyes, breathed into my heart, and remembered that contrast is not punishment, it's calibration. The universe was not taking something away. It was clearing space for alignment on a higher octave. Within days, an even better opportunity appeared, one that matched my new vibration perfectly. The lesson was clear. When something leaves your life, it's not rejection, it's resonance realigning. This experience solidified my faith. I stopped labeling experiences as good or bad and began seeing everything as feedback from the field. Success wasn't destination anymore. It was a frequency I could inhabit at will. I noticed how the more I shared, the more abundance flowed back effortlessly. Generosity had become the currency of the new paradigm. The more love I circulated, the more the universe amplified it through unexpected channels. What I once called coincidence now felt like choreography. Every event, every delay, every encounter was perfectly timed. As I walked through life with this awareness, colors seemed brighter, time more fluid, and people more transparent. I could sense the vibration of places, the resonance of conversations, even the energy of thoughts forming in my mind before they became words. Reality had turned multidimensional, and I was both participant and observer. Yet amid this vastness, I felt more human than ever, grounded, compassionate, open. The shift wasn't about escaping the world. It was about embracing it with awakened eyes. One evening I stood before the mirror and saw not just my reflection, but the shimmer of energy around it. I realized that the old version of me, the one ruled by fear and striving, was gone. What remained was awareness clothed in form, consciousness wearing humanity like art. Tears came, not from sadness but from reverence. The shift had changed everything because it had changed me. And as I whispered a silent thank you to the universe, I heard the echo of its reply within my heart. Now you are ready to live as light in motion. The morning after I accepted that my old self had dissolved into something new, I woke with a sense of weightless clarity, as though the air itself had become conscious of me. I could feel life breathing me instead of me trying to control it. The light pouring through the window seemed alive, almost aware, touching my face like an old friend who'd been waiting for me to remember them. Every sound, the whisper of wind, the distant hum of the city, carried a message. You are exactly where you need to be. For the first time, I wasn't trying to manifest something. I was simply being the manifestation. My body felt different, lighter, as if cells themselves were harmonizing with a larger rhythm. I realized that the shift had never been about reaching another place. It was about remembering the space I had always been, a field of consciousness that only pretended to be a person. From that awareness, everything flowed effortlessly. When I thought of someone with love, they would call. When I needed a resource, it arrived in unexpected ways. The boundaries between intention and result had thinned into translucence. Life had become immediate, intimate, and profoundly kind. I began to understand that creation wasn't something I did. It was something that happened through me when I aligned with truth. Each thought was a seed, and each emotion the water that nourished it. I became careful with the gardens of my mind. If anger rose, I didn't resist it. I acknowledged it and let it move through like a storm that clears the air. If doubt whispered, I met with trust, not as a weapon but as light meeting shadow. The more I practiced this, the more I saw evidence of coherence everywhere. People told me I looked radiant, peaceful, like I had discovered a secret. But it wasn't a secret. It was simply awareness. Awareness that everything I once sought outside had always been emanating from within. Abundance, love, opportunities. They were not rewards for hard work, but reflections of vibration. When I shifted internally, the mirror of the world adjusted instantly. I started teaching others how to experience this, not as philosophy, but as practice. I told them, don't try to change the world. Change your signal, and the world will change to match you. I watched as their lives began to unfold like blooming galaxies. It wasn't magic. It was resonance. Even my perception of time began to transform. Days felt elastic, expanding or contracting based on my state of presence. When I was fully here, immersed in gratitude, an hour felt eternal. When I slipped into worry, time collapsed into tension. This realization made me prioritize presence over productivity. I stopped measuring life by results and started measuring it by alignment. The paradox was that when I stopped striving, success multiplied. Projects aligned with my highest joy appeared effortlessly, and collaborations flowed without struggle. It was as if the universe, now recognizing me as a cooperative partner, orchestrated every detail with grace. I began to see the divine choreography in everything: the way challenges arrived as teachers, how delays protected me, how endings birthed beginnings. Life was not random, it was a symphony, and I was finally listening to the whole melody instead of just my part. One evening, while walking under a violet sunset, I felt the sky expand inside me. The boundary between my body and the horizon vanished. I could sense the heartbeat of existence pulsing through my veins, the same pulse that moves oceans and stars. Tears filled my eyes, not from sadness, but from the magnitude of belonging. I realized I wasn't a fragment of the universe. The universe was experiencing itself as me. Every person I met, every story unfolding, was the same consciousness playing different notes. Compassion became natural, not as a virtue, but as recognition. How could I judge another when I knew we were the same light in temporary disguise? That awareness changed how I spoke, how I listened, how I created. Words became energy tools, carrying frequencies of peace or division, depending on intention. So I chose my language as carefully as an artist choosing colors. Even silence became sacred, a field where miracles ripened. Around this time, something extraordinary began happening in my meditations. I would close my eyes and feel waves of energy rise through my spine, swirling like liquid light. My entire being hummed with electricity, not painful but euphoric, as though every cell had become a singing bowl resonating with the cosmos. Sometimes, images of sacred geometry appear behind my eyelids, patterns that pulse in golden and violet light, breathing like living entities. I understood intuitively that these were the blueprints of creation, the invisible architecture of reality. Each pattern represented harmony, and by witnessing them, my energy attuned to that harmony. After these experiences, I would emerge into the physical world filled with creative ideas, solutions, and inspiration that felt downloaded from a higher dimension. Art flowed through me. Words flowed through me. Healing energy flowed through me. I was no longer living life. Life was living me. Still, integration was a practice, not a final state. The world continued to present contrasts, not as punishment but as refinement. One day, an old friend accused me of arrogance, saying I thought I was above normal people. For a moment, the sting of misunderstanding pierced me. But then, a deeper calm answered, reminding me that everyone sees to their own level of awareness. I didn't need to defend my light. I only needed to keep shining. Within weeks, that same friend called again, this time crying, saying they finally understood what I've been trying to share. The shift works silently. Sometimes the seed of truth must sleep before it blossoms. My awareness kept expanding beyond personal life into the collective field. I began sensing the vibration of humanity as a single organism going through transformation. Some parts of the body were still asleep, still caught in fear, but the overall frequency was rising. Every act of kindness, every moment of forgiveness, every breath of gratitude was adding to the collective ascension. I could feel it, an invisible current moving through the planet, weaving together souls ready to awaken. The more I focused on unity, the more synchronicities multiplied. I would think of healing the earth and suddenly meet others with the same mission. I realized that purpose wasn't assigned. It was discovered through alignment. The higher the vibration, the clearer the calling. And so, I kept raising mine not through effort but through joy.